Why do dogs yawn? It might seem simple. They're tired, just like humans. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Yawning in our four-legged friends is an entire language they use to communicate with us. Today, we'll dive into the fascinating world of canine yawning and understand what our pets are really trying to tell us when they open their mouths wide. When we observe a dog sweetly yawning, stretching its muzzle and displaying an impressive set of teeth, we usually think, "Poor thing is tired," or "time for bed." But yawning in dogs can signal dozens of different messages, from simple sleepiness to serious stress or even an attempt at communication. Did you know that some breeds yawn more frequently than others? Or that puppies and adult dogs yawn in completely different ways? Perhaps you're curious to learn how to determine what your pet is feeling based on the nature of its yawn? Let's explore all these nuances together. Let's start with physiology. What happens when a dog yawns? During a yawn, they take a deep breath, followed by a slow exhale. The mouth opens wide, a characteristic sound may be heard, and the eyes momentarily close. A yawn typically lasts from 2 to 6 seconds and may be accompanied by stretching or even slight trembling. Interestingly, the muscles in a dog's face work in sync during a yawn, first stretching to allow the mouth to open maximally, then smoothly returning to their original position. Physiologically, yawning increases oxygen flow to the body and activates blood circulation in the brain. The volume of air inhaled during a yawn can be 3 to 4 times greater than during normal breathing. This additional oxygen stimulates brain function and helps fight drowsiness. Curiously, the temperature of blood flowing through a dog's brain may slightly decrease during a yawn, which also contributes to clearer thinking. But what's truly interesting is that dogs don't yawn only when they want to sleep. Sometimes, yawning becomes a real SOS signal, or conversely, a way to establish peaceful contact. If we learn to understand what's behind this simple action, our communication with our four-legged friend will become much deeper and better. So, the first and most obvious reason for canine yawning is ordinary sleepiness. Just like in humans, yawning helps dogs combat drowsiness, temporarily increasing alertness thanks to additional oxygen. If your pet yawns in the evening or after an active walk, they're probably just ready to rest. But did you know that dogs, unlike humans, can control their yawning? Studies show that canines can suppress the urge to yawn if necessary. For example, when they're vigilantly guarding territory or performing an important task. Pay attention to other signs of fatigue. Half-closed eyes, slowed movements, seeking a comfortable place to sleep. Many dogs perform a special ritual before sleep, turning around several times, arranging an imaginary den, and only then lying down. This instinct has been preserved from their wild ancestors who used to pat down grass for a night's rest. If yawning is accompanied by such behavior, your pet is definitely preparing for sleep. In such cases, the best thing to do is give your dog the opportunity to rest peacefully. The average dog sleeps from 12 to 14 hours a day, with a more flexible sleep pattern than humans. Dogs can sleep in short sessions throughout the day. This is why they adapt so easily to their owners' schedules. However, a much more interesting aspect of yawning is communicative. Yes, dogs use yawning as a way to communicate, and it's truly amazing. Imagine that a yawn is a universal language understood by all dogs, regardless of breed or upbringing. One of the main communicative functions of yawning is reducing tension and stress. When a dog experiences anxiety or discomfort, yawning helps it calm down. This is a form of self-regulation that restores emotional balance. Scientists compare this process to deep breathing that humans practice to relieve stress. A whole series of experiments conducted at the University of Helsinki have shown that levels of the stress hormone cortisol in dogs' blood decrease after a series of yawns. This is a real physiological self-calming mechanism. Surprisingly, even a short series of 3 to 4 yawns can reduce heart rate in an anxious dog by 10 to 15 beats per minute. How do you recognize a stress yawn? Pay attention to frequency. If a dog yawns multiple times within a short period, especially in an unfamiliar or tense environment, it's likely a sign of anxiety. Such yawning is often accompanied by other signs of concern. The dog may lick its lips, avert its gaze, blink frequently, or display whale eye when you can see the white of the eye. Interestingly, stress yawning has a special coloration. It's usually sharper and more tense, with jaws opening to a smaller angle than during normal sleepy yawning. However, the sound during such yawning might be louder, a kind of moan or quiet whimper. Experienced dog owners can distinguish types of yawning even with their eyes closed, just by the sound. Dogs especially often use yawning as a calming signal in potentially conflicting situations. For example, when meeting unfamiliar dogs or people, during veterinary visits, or in other stressful circumstances. Yawning may also appear in response to an owner's raised voice or during training if the dog feels pressure or doesn't understand what's expected of it. Statistics show that about 70% of dogs start actively yawning in veterinary clinic waiting rooms, even if they've never had a negative experience there before. This is related to the tense atmosphere, smells of other animals, and general stress. Some veterinarians even use special pheromones that are sprayed into the air to reduce the frequency of stress yawning in their patients. Imagine a situation. You're trying to teach your dog a new command, but something isn't working. You repeat the same thing, perhaps raising your voice slightly out of frustration, and suddenly you notice your pet starting to yawn. This doesn't mean they're bored or tired. Most likely, they're experiencing stress from not understanding the task or from your disappointment. Interestingly, the frequency of training yawning is directly related to the complexity of the task. The more difficult the command, the more often the dog will yawn while learning it. In such cases, it's better to take a break, change activities, or simplify the task. Professional trainers recommend following the 3 yawns rule. If a dog yawns 3 times in a row during training, you should take a break for at least 10 minutes. During this time, you can engage in simple exercises that the dog is familiar with to restore their confidence. An even more intriguing aspect is yawning as an expression of empathy. Yes, dogs can catch yawns from humans, especially from those with whom they've formed a strong emotional bond. Studies show that dogs are much more likely to pick up yawning from their owners than from strangers. This suggests that they're not simply imitating behavior, but actually possess a certain level of empathy, the ability to recognize and share others' emotional states. Researchers from Tokyo University conducted an experiment involving 25 owner-dog pairs. They discovered that dogs catch their owner's yawn in 45% of cases, while they catch a stranger's yawn in only 12% of cases. Moreover, the highest contagiousness of yawning was observed in pairs who had lived together for more than 5 years. This is amazing evidence of the deep emotional connection between humans and their 4-legged friends. Try a small experiment. Yawn next to your dog when they're watching you attentively. If after some time your pet also starts to yawn, congratulations. You have a strong emotional connection. By the way, Puppies and young dogs are less likely to catch yawns than adults. This ability develops with age and socialization. Studies show that the ability to catch yawns typically forms in dogs by the age of 7 to 8 months, when their emotional intelligence reaches a certain level of development. Yawning can also be a sign of motivational conflict. When a dog can't decide how to react to a situation, it might start yawning. For example, if a dog simultaneously wants to play with another dog but is a bit afraid, it might yawn to cope with this internal conflict. Such behavior is especially common in dogs with anxious temperaments. Interestingly, the frequency of conflict yawning may depend on breed. It occurs more often in more emotional breeds, such as Border Collies or German Shepherds, than in phlegmatic bulldogs or mastiffs. This is explained by different reactivity of the nervous system and innate temperament characteristics. Interestingly, yawning sometimes occurs before important events. Many service dog owners note that their pets often yawn right before starting work. This isn't a sign of boredom or fatigue. Rather, it's a way to focus and prepare for the upcoming task. Similar to an athlete taking a deep breath before starting, the dog uses yawning as physiological preparation for intense activity. In police and search and rescue units, instructors even use a special term, working yawn. They note that approximately 70% of service dogs display between 1 and 3 deep yawns immediately before beginning a complex task. This is a kind of psychological adjustment that helps the dog concentrate. Here's another curious function of yawning: thermoregulation. When a dog gets hot, it might start yawning to cool its brain. During yawning, cool air flows in, which lowers the temperature of blood circulating in the head. This is especially common in short-muzzled breeds, such as pugs or French bulldogs, which are naturally more prone to overheating. Studies on thermoregulatory yawning show that a dog's brain temperature can decrease by 0.4 degrees Celsius after a series of 5 to 6 deep yawns. For a dog's body, this is a significant change that can prevent dangerous overheating. Nature provided this mechanism long before air conditioners and cooling mats for animals were invented. If a dog frequently yawns on a hot day or after active play, this might be a signal of overheating. In such cases, it's necessary to offer water and move to a cooler place. Some owners notice that their pets may yawn 20 to 30 times in a row if the air temperature exceeds 30 degrees Celsius. This is a direct signal that cooling is needed. Remember that dogs are much more sensitive to high temperatures than humans, and heat stroke poses a serious danger to them. Unlike humans, dogs can't sweat through their entire body surface, which makes thermoregulation more challenging for them. Yawning, in this case, is one of the few cooling mechanisms available to them. It's worth separately mentioning medical causes of frequent yawning. If a dog yawns constantly without any apparent connection to emotional state or physical activity, this might indicate health problems. Frequent yawning sometimes accompanies neurological disorders, breathing problems, or oral cavity diseases. In some cases, yawning might be a sign of pain, especially if it involves discomfort in the jaw, ears, or throat areas. Veterinary clinic statistics indicate that approximately 5% of dogs presenting with complaints of excessive yawning are subsequently diagnosed with oral cavity diseases, from stomatitis to neoplasms. Another 3% are found to have ear problems, and 1 to 2% have neurological disorders. This confirms that frequent yawning can be an important diagnostic sign. Sometimes excessive yawning might be related to temporomandibular joint dysfunction. In this case, the dog usually yawns unnaturally and asymmetrically, and yawning might be accompanied by a slight click or crunch. If you notice such features, be sure to show your pet to a veterinarian. Early detection of jaw problems can prevent the development of more serious complications. If excessive yawning is accompanied by other concerning symptoms, lethargy, loss of appetite, behavioral changes, definitely consult a veterinarian. Some experts recommend following this rule. If a healthy dog yawns more than 30 times a day, not counting waking up and falling asleep, it's reason to visit a specialist. Better to be safe than to miss early signs of a serious illness. Now let's explore how yawning is related to hierarchy in a dog pack. In the wild, subordinate individuals often use yawning as a pacifying signal when interacting with dominant pack members. This is a nonverbal way of saying, "I recognize your high status and pose no threat." Researchers observing wolf packs in Yellowstone National Park discovered that subordinate individuals yawn in the presence of the alpha male or alpha female 5 times more frequently than in their absence. This fact confirms the important social role of yawning in hierarchical relationships. In dogs, which are descendants of wolves, these behavioral patterns have been preserved, albeit in a somewhat modified form. Domestic dogs have retained these instincts. If your pet yawns in response to your commands, or when you look at them intently, they might be demonstrating respect and submission this way. This doesn't mean the dog is afraid of you. Rather, they recognize your leadership role and are trying to avoid conflict. Interestingly, in multi-dog households, a clear correlation can be observed between a dog's hierarchical position and the frequency of its submissive yawning. Statistics show that dogs occupying lower positions in the hierarchy yawn when interacting with dominant pack members 3 to 4 times more often than at other times. This is a vivid illustration of how ancient instincts manifest in the behavior of modern domestic pets. Related to this is another interesting feature, yawning as a peacekeeping gesture. When two unfamiliar dogs meet, they might exchange yawns as signals of peaceful intentions. This is a kind of handshake in the dog world, a way of saying, "I'm friendly and don't want conflict." It happens that a more confident dog first demonstrates such a gesture to calm a nervous fellow canine. Dog behavior specialists from the University of Vienna conducted a series of observations at dog parks and recorded that in 83% of cases, meetings between two unfamiliar dogs, where at least one demonstrated peacekeeping, yawning ended in peaceful interaction. At the same time, the absence of such a signal almost doubled the probability of conflict. These data confirm the enormous importance of yawning as a means of preventing aggression. Surprisingly, yawning can also be an expression of excitement. Some dogs yawn from joyful anticipation, for example, before a walk, play, or feeding. This is something like an impatient, "Come on, hurry up." In such cases, yawning is usually accompanied by other signs of excitement: tail wagging, jumping, playful bows. Anticipatory yawning has its characteristics. It's usually short, shallow, and may repeat at small intervals. It's often accompanied by special sounds, quiet whimpering, or even a soft bark at the end of the yawn. Some owners note that their dogs can perform up to 10 such yawns in a row when they see a leash being taken out for a walk or a bowl being prepared with food. Let's address an interesting aspect, yawning in the context of training. Experienced dog trainers carefully monitor yawning during training sessions. If a dog starts yawning frequently, it might mean the session is too long or complex, and the pet needs a break. The International Association of Positive Training Methods has even developed a special scale for assessing a dog's stress level during training, where yawning frequency is one of the key parameters. According to this scale, 1 to 2 yawns per 15 minutes of training is considered normal. 3 to 4 yawns signal mild stress, and 5 or more indicate the need for an immediate break. Use this knowledge to improve training effectiveness. Notice your dog yawning after several attempts to master a new command? Take a pause, praise them for progress already made, and switch to something familiar and pleasant. You can return to the complex task later when your pet is more relaxed and receptive. Some professional trainers recommend keeping a yawning diary, recording in which situations and how often your dog yawns during sessions. Analyzing these records will help identify patterns and determine the optimal duration and intensity of training specifically for your pet. This is especially useful when working with sensitive and emotional breeds. Did you know that yawning can vary in intensity and duration depending on its cause? Stress yawning is usually longer and more tense, with strong jaw stretching. The dog might emit a high-pitched whining sound. Relaxed yawning, associated with fatigue or comfort, is typically smoother and unhurried. Dog body language experts identify up to 5 different types of yawning, each with its characteristic features: sleepy, stress, communicative, thermoregulatory, and anticipatory. Each type has its visual and audio characteristics that an attentive owner can learn to distinguish. For example, sleepy yawning is usually accompanied by slow blinking and a relaxed posture, while stress yawning is accompanied by tense posture and frequent licking of the nose. Different dog breeds also demonstrate different yawning frequencies. Studies show that more intelligent and socially developed breeds, such as border collies or poodles, more often use yawning as a communicative signal. This is explained by their increased sensitivity to social interactions and developed nonverbal communication skills. According to research conducted at Cambridge University, breeds belonging to the herding group yawn on average 30% more often than hunting breeds, and almost twice as often as guardian breeds. This may be related to the evolutionary history of these breeds. Herding dogs needed a finer understanding of body language for effective herd management, while guardian dogs were primarily expected to be vigilant rather than communicative. Interestingly, a dog's size also affects the frequency and nature of yawning. Large breeds, such as Newfoundlands or St. Bernards, yawn less frequently, but for longer duration than small breeds like Chihuahuas or Yorkshire Terriers. This may be related to differences in metabolism and respiratory system physiology. Small dogs with their accelerated metabolism need more frequent air renewal in their lungs. Age also affects the character and frequency of yawning. Puppies yawn less often than adult dogs, and their yawning is more often related to physiological needs rather than social communication. As they age, dogs enrich their body language and begin to use yawning more consciously and purposefully. Statistics show that puppies under 3 months of age yawn approximately half as often as adult dogs. Meanwhile, adolescence, from 6 to 12 months, is characterized by a peak in stress yawning. During this period, dogs are actively learning social norms and rules of behavior, which often causes uncertainty and anxiety. By 2 to 3 years, yawning patterns usually stabilize and remain relatively unchanged until old age. In elderly age, after 8 to 10 years depending on breed, the frequency of yawning may increase again, but now for physiological reasons, due to reduced efficiency of breathing and circulation. Older dogs need more oxygen to maintain brain activity, and yawning helps them compensate for age-related changes in the body. Let's talk about how to properly respond to canine yawning in different situations. If your pet yawns from stress or anxiety, help them feel safe. Speak in a calm voice, avoid sudden movements, and if necessary, remove them from the uncomfortable environment. You can offer your dog a favorite toy or treat to distract them from the source of stress. Interestingly, the speed at which a dog calms down after a stressful situation may depend on breed and individual characteristics. A study conducted by University of Michigan specialists showed that some dogs need only 5 to 7 minutes to fully restore emotional balance after stress, while others need up to half an hour. Meanwhile, cortisol levels in a dog's blood may remain elevated for some time after external signs of stress have disappeared. Did you know there are special techniques for reducing anxiety in dogs based on observing their yawning? The feedback method suggests that the owner starts yawning themselves upon noticing signs of stress in their pet. This creates a kind of calming dialogue and helps the dog normalize their emotional state more quickly. The effectiveness of this method is confirmed by research. In 78% of cases, the frequency of yawning in anxious dogs decreases after the owner starts yawning in response. If yawning is related to fatigue, respect your pet's need for rest. Don't insist on continuing play or training if you see that the dog has exhausted its energy reserves. Remember that regular, complete rest is just as important for a dog's health as physical activity. Interesting fact, sleep needs can vary significantly among different breeds. While the average dog sleeps 12 to 14 hours a day, some working breeds may need only 10 to 11 hours, while giant breeds, such as Great Danes or Mastiffs, may require up to 16 to 18 hours of sleep for complete recovery. If your dog yawns more often than usual, they might simply need more rest. Yawning as a sign of overexcitement requires a special approach. In such cases, it's helpful to help the dog calm down and focus. You can offer them a quiet game requiring concentration. For example, searching for hidden treats or solving a simple puzzle. There are special calming activities for overexcited dogs. One is the find and fetch game, where you hide a toy and the dog must find it. This game shifts attention from emotional excitement to solving a specific task, which helps normalize the pet's state. According to canine experts, after 15 minutes of such play, the frequency of overexcited yawning decreases in 90% of dogs. A separate topic is yawning during sleep. Yes, dogs can yawn without waking up. During REM sleep, when dogs dream, they sometimes make various movements, twitching their paws, making sounds, and even yawning. This is a normal phenomenon that indicates healthy brain activity during sleep. Studies show that dogs especially actively experience events in their sleep that occurred within the last 24 hours. Did you know about the curious phenomenon called synchronous yawning? When dogs live together for a long time, they begin to yawn synchronously, with intervals of several seconds. This phenomenon is similar to the synchronization of menstrual cycles in women living in the same house. It's believed that such synchronization is related to close social bonds and promotes group cohesion. In wolf packs, for example, collective yawning often precedes joint hunting or rest. Here's another interesting fact. During heat, the frequency of yawning in females may increase by 30 to 40%. Scientists associate this with hormonal changes and increased emotional tension. Males, in turn, may demonstrate increased yawning frequency when meeting a female in estrus. This is part of ritual behavior demonstrating interest, but at the same time, absence of aggressive intentions. It's also interesting how yawning is related to time perception in dogs. Some researchers believe that dogs forced to wait for a long time, for example, for their owner's return, use yawning as a way to slow subjective time perception. Yawning causes momentary shifting of attention, which helps the dog more easily endure loneliness or boredom. This may explain why dogs suffering from separation from their owners often demonstrate increased yawning frequency. In conclusion to our discussion about canine yawning, I want to emphasize the main point. This simple and seemingly ordinary gesture can tell us a great deal about your pet's state. Observation and attention to details of a dog's behavior are the key to understanding their needs and feelings. Dogs cannot speak to us in human language, but they constantly communicate with us through looks, movements, postures, and of course, yawning. By learning to read these signals, you'll be able to better understand your four-legged friend and build more harmonious relationships. Leading experts in animal behavior believe that understanding a dog's nonverbal signals can improve mutual understanding between human and pet by 80%. This significantly reduces the risk of behavioral problems and makes living together more comfortable for both. And yawning is one of the most informative and multifaceted signals we receive from our dogs. By the way, did you know there are breeds that yawn almost silently? These include, for example, Basenjis, an ancient African breed known for not barking, but making unique sounds resembling yodeling. Basenji yawning is almost not accompanied by sounds, which is related to the special shape of their larynx. In contrast, breeds such as Huskies or Malamutes often accompany yawning with expressive sound effects, making their yawning very noticeable and sometimes amusing. Remember that yawning is just one of many elements of canine body language. For a complete understanding of your pet, it's important to pay attention to other signals: position of ears and tail, expression of eyes, overall posture. Only a comprehensive approach will allow you to become a true translator from dog language. Scientists have established that canine body language includes more than 200 different signals, of which yawning is one of the 20 most informative. And most amazingly, the meaning of most of these signals depends on the context in which they appear. Thus, the same pose or facial expression can mean completely different things in different situations. That's why it's so important to observe your dog carefully and consider all circumstances. Observe your pet, learn to understand their unique vocabulary, and remember, each dog is individual. What yawning means for one dog may have a completely different meaning for another. Your task is to become an expert specifically on your four-legged friend, and then deep and complete mutual understanding awaits you. When an owner truly understands their dog's body language, an amazing connection emerges between them, which scientists call emotional synchronization. This is a state where human and dog feel each other so well that their emotional states begin to coincide. Studies show that in such pairs, even oxytocin levels, the attachment hormone, rise synchronously during interaction. This is the real chemistry of love between a human and their four-legged friend. Thank you for your attention. I hope now you'll look at a yawning dog with completely different eyes. You've learned about the physiology of yawning, its various functions, from stress relief to thermoregulation, about how yawning is related to empathy, social hierarchy, and communication. We've examined how to recognize different types of yawning and respond to them properly. Remember that by observing how your dog yawns, you can better understand their state, needs, and even prevent possible health problems. After all, yawning is an entire language through which our four-legged friends try to communicate with us. And now you know its basics. Don't forget to share this video with your dog-owning friends and subscribe to the channel for more interesting materials about our beloved pets. Until next time.